welcome to the Coon Rapids City Council meeting for Wednesday, February 7th, 2018. If you could please rise and join us for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let's call the roll when you're ready.
Councilmember Griscoviac.
Here.
Councilmember Kicker.
Here.
Councilmember Demmer. Here. Councilmember Geisler. Here. Councilmember Johnson.
Here.
Councilmember Wells.
Here.
Mayor Cook.
Here. Thank you. First item on our agenda then is to adopt this evening's agenda.
Second.
Motion by Gadsler, second by Demmer. Any corrections or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? And the agenda is adopted. We don't have any proclamations or presentations. So we are up to item 1, approve the minutes of January 16th.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Demmer, second by Johnson to approve the city council meeting minutes for January 16th, 2018. Any discussion?
Mayor,
Councilmember Griscoviac?
there was just one thing in section 4, the wellhead protection plan. Matt Stemwell is quoted as saying we are not rejoining that group. I think it should say now. They are now rejoining that group.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, Councilmember Kicker brought that to our attention. It has been corrected in the set that you'll sign tonight.
Oh,
Good.
okay.
Thank you.
Very good.
So the motion passed unanimously, but there's a little contradiction. Thank you.
Right, I agree. Thank you for noticing it.
Nice catch.
Not versus
Wow.
now.
Putting words in Mr. Stemwell's
One letter.
mouth.
Right.
One letter is a big difference.
Yep. Any other discussion?
So the motion is friendly to approve the board.
Well, so apparently that's the version that we have
Yeah.
in this stack if everybody came over and looked at it.
Oops.
Okay. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? And those minutes are approved with that one little change. We have 3 items on our consent agenda this evening. And the first one is to approve final payment for project 17-7, 2017, well rehabilitation. The city engineer has recommended final payment to Keys Well Drilling Company in the amount of $16,626.28 for project 17-7. The charges for the project were for additional development at well number 12, adjusting estimated quantities of some well repair items and removing some items in the original bid. The actual project costs were less than the final contract amount due to less work performed than actual bid. So let's see. So we are looking at approving of the change orders and the final payment to Keys Well Drilling Company in the amount of $16,626.28 for project 17-7, 2017 well rehabilitation. Item 3 is to adopt resolution 18-34, setting a levy hearing for miscellaneous assessments 2018-1. And we are setting a public hearing for April 5th. So the Board of Adjustment and Appeals is expected to conduct this hearing on April 5th and make a recommendation to the City Council at the April 17th council meeting. So if anyone has assessments they would like to appeal, that is the time in front of the Board of Adjustment and Appeals. Those assessments include services provided to taxpayers. In most cases, code enforcement violations. The terms of repayment are determined by the amount being assessed, and the proposed assessments are categorized by the number of years to be assessed and the interest rate recommended. So we are adopting Resolution 18-34, miscellaneous assessment, declaring the cost to be assessed, ordering preparation of the proposed assessment roll, and ordering the public hearing for March 6th, 2018 on the proposed assessment roll. Now, that's different than Board of Adjustment and Appeals. Mr. Stemwell, can I get a clarification on this? So we're looking at a Board of Adjustment and Appeals, April 5th and April 17th, but we're ordering a public hearing for March 6th for the proposed assessment roll. That's all.
March 6th is when we'll take the assessments. That's when the assessments will be, so we'll take them here while the public hearing for anybody to object to those assessments. That's when the rolls will be presented. Any objections will be referred to the board that will conduct that here to the Board of Adjustments on April 5th. Those recommendations will come back to council for final adoption on April 17th.
Okay, got it. So they need to present that appeal to us by the March 6th date, though. March 6th date to be included in that Board of Adjustment appeal on April 5th. Mr. Stemwell.
Mayor, council, that's correct. They have to file the written objection up until, I think, 7 o'clock, or there's into the evening before the council meeting, and they can be accepted, I think, even at the meeting up
Okay.
into that hearing.
Okay. Thanks for the clarification. There was just too many dates.
Yeah, there was.
All right. Next item on our consent agenda is item 4. Yep. To approve a special assessment agreement with Kathleen Roosted, 12965 Raven Street. And we are working with the property owner to establish a plan and a timeline to remedy bringing the home into compliance. So we're looking at renting a dumpster for $499. An agreement has been drafted by the city and signed by both the city and the homeowner to pay for the cost of the dumpster, which will then be assessed to our property taxes. So ordering this dumpster will allow the property owner to bring her home into compliance in a timely manner, and currently is on schedule to have compliance by the middle of February. So we're looking to approve the agreement, which will assess the cost of a dumpster to property address 12965 Raven Street, and that's the total of our consent agenda.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Johnson?
just a quick question for council on that one. In the agreement, it talked about renting a dumpster at estimated cost of $415 per week for a 2-week period. And in the summary, it was $499. So did we determine that it's only going to be $499 and?
I believe that's my understanding. That might be the actual cost now that they've
Okay,
spoken with the property owner. I think when the agreement was being drafted, it wasn't
pinned down.
pinned down exactly.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions?
Nope.
Councilmember Kicker?
I make a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion by Kicker, second by Demmer to approve the consent agenda. Any discussion or questions? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And the consent agenda is adopted. Next is item 5, to hold a public hearing and consideration of Resolution 18-33, adopting modification to tax increment financing plan for tax increment financing District 6-1. Mr. Brown, you want to hit on this, or?
Yeah, I can provide a little overview. Your Honor, members of the council, this is the final step in the process for accepting the special legislation we received last year from the state that allows us to extend the duration of the Port Riverwalk TIF district for 5 years. That will allow us to capture a little bit more increment, help us recover more of the initial cost that the city had for acquiring that site, assembling the land. So the council is asked to first conduct a public hearing and then adopt a resolution that approves a modification to the TIF plan for that district. The EDA will also be meeting immediately after this meeting to also adopt a resolution approving that TIF plan. So Jason Arswald is here from Ellers if there are any specific questions on the TIF plan, but otherwise we'll ask that you hold a public hearing and consider that resolution.
Okay. Council, any questions before we open the public hearing? All right. Well, with that then, we will open the public hearing for adopting a modification to the tax increment financing plan for the tax increment financing district 6-1. I'm not going to repeat all that. We'll open the public hearing now. Anybody here to address council for the public hearing? Jason? No? All right. If nobody wants to speak to the public hearing, we'll close the public hearing. And council.
Your Honor,
Councilmember Demmer.
move to adopt Resolution 18-33, adopting modification to the tax increment financing plan for tax increment District 6-1.
Second.
Motion by Demmer, second by Geisler. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? And that motion carries. Thanks for coming. Item 6 on this evening's agenda is to consider planning case 17-37, consider adoption of ordinance 2203 to allow veterinary clinics as a permitted use in the regional shopping district, Sambatec Incorporated. This was introduced at the last council meeting. Is there anything that you would like to, any changes that came up or any discussions that came up, or?
Mayor and council, there hasn't been any modifications to the proposed ordinance since it was introduced last month. I'll answer any questions you may have.
Okay. Council, any questions on this?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Geisler?
I'll make a motion to adopt ordinance 2203 to allow veterinary clinics and animal hospitals as permitted uses in the regional shopping district and to authorize summary publication.
Second.
Motion by Geisler, second by Griscoviac. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? And that motion carries. Item 7 is to consider adoption of ordinance 2204, amending City Code 10-200, right-of-way management. Mr. Hemmer,
Mr.
small
Mayor,
cells.
members of the council, this would be the adoption that was introduced at your last meeting. This follows state statute with regard to rates in which we can charge, but it better allows us to control that process through permitting. So in addition to adding all the small cell items, and those came directly out of state statute, we cleaned up some of the things that, I mean, we just issue right-of-way permits. We don't obstructions. It's all one thing for us. So we cleaned up a little housekeeping as part of the small cell. Mr. Brody and I, along with community development, a lot of people worked together on this, and it's been going on for several months. And so this gets us to the point of having this on record and then letting, see what happens as they come to us. It at least gives us some ability to control and have some oversight over it.
Okay. We apparently aren't anticipating any degradation anymore. We've eliminated those lines. And I like the cleaning up, and the obstruction permits are now just part of the right-of-way permit. The bigger question that I had, and I think I've, and I think it's handled under that 10-229 right-of-way vacation. So if the city were to decide to bury utilities, is it considered a public purpose? You know, because basically we can vacate, we can eliminate the right-of-way with notice, and they have to remove their equipment as long as it's for a public purpose. If we decided to bury utilities along Coon Rapids Boulevard and they had their small cells mounted to the poles along there, that would be a public purpose. We wouldn't have to pay to have those removed. Okay, because that's just my interpretation. We've got an attorney, so.
I guess I'm not 100%, I'm not so certain, I don't think the small cells are gonna be the barrier or the issue when it comes to burying the utilities. I think there'll be issues with the utilities themselves and who's gonna have to pay for that and things like that. Obviously, that'll be a small piece of it if it's on one of those. There's still gonna be plenty of other things in the right of way for them to attach to. So this isn't gonna add anything different to that equation. Okay. I'm not gonna answer your question directly, but I'm just gonna sort of indirectly do that this won't, I don't think, change that math.
Okay.
Or make it any more or less likely that that would happen.
And then we're gonna control through the permit process. You know, I think about all of those beautiful brand-new streetlights on Main Street or down on Coon Rapids Boulevard. Would they be coming to us for a permit to be attaching these to those?
Mr. Mayor, they're gonna come in and they're gonna say, I want it in this location. And they'll identify probably, yes, I want that pole. And we might say, that's not gonna work so much, how about this location generally in the same spot? So I think we have some control, especially if they're ours. Now, let's just say Connexus has a street light up there, and they want to attach it to Connexus's light. That's an agreement that they would have independent with Connexus. They would still have to come through us to issue a permit, and it may go to your last question, is that they wouldn't assume the franchise agreement that those other users have. So they could put it on an Anoka County traffic signal. So they'd have to get authorization from Anoka County and jump through those hoops to get it, but they'd still have to come to us to have it in our space. So we have some control over the facilities they go on.
Okay. Mr. Stemmetal?
Mayor, Council, in the presentation that was completed by the League of Minnesota Cities at the Anoka County officials meeting, one of the things they mentioned is that, cities, first it has to meet the structural requirement of the small cell unit, and in that case, I'm guessing those streetlights aren't built to carry a load like that. Keep in mind, these are small refrigerator-sized units that they would be mounting to that. And I believe they also mentioned an exemption for decorative lighting, that if that's the sole purpose of that lighting, then the city could deny based on that. So I think there are some things in the statute that was approved this past legislative session that gave some cities comfort in the types of things they'd be able to control.
Okay. We did buy the really good poles though up there, so.
Yeah.
May I just follow up on
Councilmember Johnson.
your question? Is it your question, and I want to make sure I'm understanding this so that I can kind of articulate my thoughts on it, but is it your question that if we decided to, for example, bury utilities, that that we could do so and eliminate this small cell component on the utilities that were currently above ground if there was a public purpose? Is that kind of the nature of the question?
So the nature of so the question is, if they've put their small cells on those poles along
Right.
Coon Rapids Boulevard, and then we're able to
Later.
get the utilities later to work with us to bury the utilities, I'm looking at the right-of-way vacation. And if the city vacates a right-of-way which contains the facilities of a registrant, the registrant's rights in the vacated right-of-way are governed by Minnesota rules. If the local government unit vacated a right-of-way that contains the facilities of a right-of-way user, and if the vacation requires a relocation, and if the vacation proceedings are initiated by the registrant or permittee, the registrant or permittee must pay. I guess, the only thing I underlined was, if the vacation proceedings are initiated by the city for a public purpose, the registrant or permittee must pay the relocation costs. So that seemed to me
Right.
to answer the question, if we wanted to bury the utilities, that would be for a public purpose, I would think.
And the reason that I asked the question is, I don't think we have separately defined public purpose in this ordinance, so there's not a definition of public purpose. I've often considered public purpose to mean, and I think it's appropriate to have a conversation here, so there is a little bit of a legislative record, if you will, about the council's understanding of public purpose, to mean some kind of governmental action or direction that purports to benefit the populace as a whole or the general public. And I believe, and the reason that I'm voting to support this is that I don't think we're prohibited from doing as you suggest by burying the utility lines, because that would be a direction or function that we would approve that would be for the benefit of the general public or the populace as a whole. And there are tons of public advantages to having buried utility lines, especially when you suffer winters like we do here in Minnesota. So I am going to vote to support this based on my understanding that it would be a public purpose to bury utility lines, and it would have that kind of natural kind of interpretation that you are suggesting. So I just kind of wanted to have that out there, and if anybody has a different view, I'd love to hear it.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Hammer?
I think there's two things here, and that is, I believe the state legislature has deemed that this small cell in and of itself is a public purpose. That is for the good of all of us, thus their desire to add it to the bill. So the small cell, I think according to them, is the public purpose. Now, this is an antenna they're placing in a smaller box if you can get electricity to be sent through an antenna, that would be a good thing. So even if we decided we're gonna take down all the power poles, you're still gonna have streetlights out there somewhere. You're still gonna have traffic signals. You could say, well, we'll allow you a small pole in place of all of this stuff getting buried. So I think you could still get the stuff underground and leave that flexibility open for them to have a structure to still do this.
But likewise, I think the whole concept of burying utilities is for a public purpose in, unless we are doing it simply for some kind of decorative reason or something like that. But that, if what you're talking about, and I'm anticipating you're talking about is along Coon Rapids Boulevard, I mean, there are just all sorts of public benefits that stem from and flow from the bearing of utilities along that area. So I'll just let the record stand there.
Councilmember Demmer?
My understanding is, you know, if someone says, I want to put a small cell on a power pole, and then that power pole goes away, right? Yes, adding the small cell to the power pole was in the public good, but us taking the power pole down is also in the public good, so then we might be able to suggest a location of a different place that has power, but that we'd be free to take that down at some point if we wanted to, because that's also a public good.
Without having to.
And then they would have to pay for it based on this. So I'm just trying to distill what Mr. Johnson said into just a very clear, they can put it on the pole, we can still take the pole down and put it somewhere else, and that's a public good for us to do that. And by that token, I think then if there's a place that we think we might take down power poles at some point, maybe advise people not to put the cells on the power poles in that area.
I think that would be a plan if we had it even in the long term.
Yeah.
It's got to get some traction going in that direction. All right. Any other questions, or does anybody want to make a motion on this?
Mayor, I do have a question.
All right.
And
Councilmember Scobie?
it has to do with the legislation, the recent legislation. It kind of is forcing us to have to allow these things, and that's fine. And that's what we're voting on tonight. But these are private companies that are going to be allowed to put their stuff in the public right away, right? So my biggest question, or my only question really, is does the permitting process allow, or maybe specifically disallow, other uses for that piece of property, for that small cell wireless unit? For example, there's going to be an antenna in there. Can they put a camera in there? Can they put other recording devices? It's their private property. They get to do whatever they want with it? Or is it just an antenna?
Councilmember Grisoviac, this is related to communication. So I don't know, I'll let Mr. Brody handle whether he thinks that is part of it. And we've had some independent people that come in. They're not a Sprint, they're not anybody, and they say, we want to put up these things. And it's, well, are you putting them up for a provider as defined here, or are you just putting them up and then you're going to sell them to the highest bidder? And so our interpretation is you have to be sanctioned or approved through the Public Utilities Commission as that provider. And I think this is just related to transfer of data and other things. I don't know that cameras would apply there, but again, I'll defer to Mr. Brody.
Tim, I would agree with that. I think you have to be I'm looking for the right word or the right definition, but a telecommunication user. And so what that's defined as, I don't think would include, we'd have to look at that, whether that would include having a camera there, probably not. Probably doesn't meet what the definition or what the intent of a telecommunication user is. So I would think that off the top of our heads that no, that type of use wouldn't be allowed. Something,
Follow up on that.
something beyond what just the scope of the initial sort of application.
Councilmember Johnson?
And remember, the issuance of the permit is focused on small wireless facility, wireless service, and wireless support structure conditions. I think we can narrowly construe that as those things are defined to prohibit them from putting other things in there, like, for example, advertising or a camera or things like that, unless there was some reason to have it. Now, you and I both could envision a situation where some raptor is going to nest in an area and somebody's going to want to have a red hawk cam or something like that, watching baby hawks. But I think that's a rare instance and a little bridge we can cross down the road. So I would hope that the staff would narrowly construe those definitions.
Very good. All right. Any other questions? Motion?
Your Honor.
Councilmember Demmer.
Sorry, went to sleep here.
You were your machine.
Well, my timeout's a little longer. So in planning case 17-43, nope, wrong one, sorry. Somebody else?
So I can take it.
Councilmember Geisler?
I'll make a
There we
motion to adopt ordinance 2204, amending city code 10-200, right-of-way management and authorized summary publication.
I'll second.
Motion by Geisler, second by Johnson. Is there a discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion carries. We're on to item 8. Consider adoption of ordinance 2205, Pleasure Creek District Dissolution. And I don't think we're going to go through all this again, but this is the drainage. Pleasure Creek Drainage District was created to fund storm drainage improvements back in 1980 and no longer serves any function. We've already had the public hearing on it, and now we're looking at adopting the ordinance. Councilmember Demmer.
Okay, I got it. Actually, over this time. Move to adopt ordinance 2205 and authorize summary publication, dissolving the Pleasure Creek District.
Second.
Motion by Demmer, second by Griscoviac. Discussion? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? And that motion carries. We are on to new business. First item is to consider resolution number 17-12 sub 8, accepting plans and specs for 2018 park improvements and authorizing solicitation of bids. Mr. Hammer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. The two parks proposed for reconstruction in 2018 are Crooked Lake and River Wind. And there are some updated site plans for you. You previously approved the concepts. Those had gone through the public process. So we just ready to get this out for bid and excited to get into another construction season. Briefly, I'll touch on the River Wind building, which I still have to come back to you on. I'm getting some refined costs through, I called up Grady this time and said, Grady, help me out with what's going on out here. So I've got Mr. Kinghorn now kind of checking some things and making sure that we can afford that. But the construction limits are outside of that. We'll be doing some removals on that back patio side as part of this. But I hope to have some more answers on the building in the not too distant future. But this is just for the site improvements in the back. I'll draw your interest to the fact that we are looking at a bid alternate for the trail that goes up behind the back up to, is it Morse Spy? So that is being bid as an alternate just to widen that and upgrade it. And then also a little bit of expansion of the irrigation system as well. But with that, I'll stand for questions.
Is there any additional funding available? So the one that's connecting to the school, is there any like those safe walks to school or those grant programs, any of that money available?
Mr. Mayor, there are Safe Routes to School programs. However, you have to have a planning document in place before you're eligible to receive funds for infrastructure. So we would have to do a document that shows that this is within a prescribed zone. And
Okay.
we kind of went through it a little bit with the high school, and it takes multiple years for that to happen. Depending on the prices, we can always introduce our own miscellaneous trail funds or something else to supplement that, depending on what those costs are. But there's nothing in short order that we're going to be able to get to supplement those dollars right now.
Councilmember Demmer.
So I know when a lot of this was put together, there was not going to be a building or a bathroom in the River Wind area. Should that building stay and a bathroom be put in there, was there any thought of taking all the playground structures and the courts and just kind of moving them south so that they're all closer to the bathrooms? Is that something that could be changed? I mean, because you'd still have all the same stuff, it would just be moved a little closer to the building.
Well, Councilmember Demo, we thought that was kind of that open green space.
Right.
And you kind of play off the building from meeting
Okay.
space, or that you could open up that back end and where the old skate park was, just leave that as a patio and have better access. So while the things are not in close proximity, once you start shifting things around, then you start to lose some of that open green space that's there that somebody wants to throw a frisbee or picnic or something like that. So the pickleball courts are kind of locked in because of that additional parking and things that are there. It just seems to fit. You can start to massage some of the other stuff, but then you're playing with the grades and the contours. And because we didn't know, and we still don't know the fate
Right.
of that building, we wanted to move ahead with the site design. I still think it will play well You know, we can add picnic tables, we can add some other things, but yeah, there is gonna be a little jaunt to get over there.
Okay.
We'll also be supplementing with Biffs too, so.
People are there for exercise.
Good point.
All right.
Mayor?
Councilmember Kraskowiak.
Since all these parks are in Ward 1, I'd like to move to adopt Resolution 1712 Sub 8, approving plans and specifications and ordering advertisement for bids for the 2018 Park Improvement Project.
Second.
Motion by Kraskowiak, second by Kicker. Is there discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion carries. Next under new business is item 10. Consider resolution 18-29 approving a lot split at 2329 124th Lane, Mason Home Company. And this is just proposing to subdivide a 63,772 square foot, 1.46 acre lot into two lots. There is an existing residence on parcel 2. It consists of the home and a detached garage. Does anybody need Mr. Harlicher's dog and pony show on this, or it seems pretty cut and dried, and we're not making any exceptions or anything, right?
Correct.
I assume the driveway will come in off the corner of that, where it tags in there. So let's see. Both lots have frontage on 124th Lane and Main Street. Access to both lots will be limited to 124th Lane, and the existing residence has a driveway from 124th Lane. The city engineer has reviewed the proposed lot split. His memo is attached. The original lot was platted as part of Coon Creek Gardens in 1934. Little history there, predating park dedication fees. So park dedication fees should be paid for the two lots at this time. At the Planning Commission, January 18th, no one spoke at the public hearing, and the commission discussed possible location of the driveway. Staff explained that there is a sufficient right-of-way on 124th Avenue to accommodate a driveway, and the commission voted unanimously to recommend approval of the proposed lot split, and that's why it's here. So, council?
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Johnson?
I'm all in favor of lot splits, especially on properties like this where there's ample amount of space. I am a little concerned about the access on the road, though. When I look at the survey that was done, it looks like there's only just a little tiny bit in the permanent easement for street and utility purposes that actually touches the road. And it actually looks like it's too narrow to be a legal driveway. That is the amount. And I'm wondering if there's any way through working with the adjoining landowner to make sure that there is adequate frontage on the road. Because as I look at that, you've got an easement that's a 20-foot easement by 90-foot easement. The lot is only 90 feet wide, but that little corner that touches the road can't be much more than 10, 15 feet.
I think that's exactly what it is, because you're looking at a 10-foot setback
Right.
coming down the house, and so, but, you know, so you probably get 15 feet for the driveway there.
I could,
Yeah, Mr. Harlicher?
excuse me, Mayor and Council, the right-of-way for the street here goes from here all the way over. So there's 35 feet of frontage, excuse me, on 124th Lane, as well as this 20-foot street and utility easement. So they've got all this area here in which to locate their driveway. From this dot here over to the property line, so all along through here.
Yeah, but from that dot there all the way over to the curb cut.
To here,
No, back up a little bit. So from there, all the way over to the curb cut on this, there you go, right there. I mean, if they cross that line, they're onto the neighbor's property.
no, Councilmember
Okay.
Johnson, this dotted line here is the right-of-way for the street going to the south.
All right, I
So
see.
they could actually come in through here and still access the street through city right-of-way.
All right, and that would, it would be, but who owns the fee under that other right-of-way? So I understand that there is a right-of-way for the neighboring property that is there, but who owns the fee under that right-of-way?
This property here goes all the way down to this point here.
I'm talking about right below that.
This here, that's actually city right-of-way.
All right, so is the city willing to allow the driveway to cross across city property in that right-of-way easement? Because if the city owns the fee under that, and the city is okay with that, then we should make that clear for the landowner so that they have that access.
If the city, and I don't know, I'm relying on what
Sure.
I'm hearing here, is all along Uplander, the city is allowing those driveways to access the roadway, at least on those existing properties.
Okay.
Mayor, Council,
All right.
if,
Yeah.
on the first attachment, there's an aerial that I think depicts that a little easier than the other piece, because you can kind of see which part of that is the public right-of-way and how that'd be accessed.
So there's a
And-
house there, but there's that little kind of triangle.
Yep.
Okay.
So that actually makes me more confused, because I would assume the person owning the house on Uplander is the one that's mowing that lawn right now.
It is.
And is thinking that's their front yard.
And now the driveway's going through their yard.
Right.
I thought it was just gonna go straight up, and we were just,
Yeah, I thought it was gonna come in that, like, that little 15 feet, that little 15-foot strip
Right.
you're talking about there.
I am, please don't misunderstand what I'm suggesting here. I am totally in support of allowing a subdivision here. I just want to make sure that by allowing it, we don't create neighborhood issues. That's it.
Councilmember Johnson, I completely agree. We don't want that driveway to cut across that triangle, because it's gonna feel like we just put it across
His front
that
yard.
property that they've been mowing that land for 25 years, or however long that house has been there.
So if it is in fact such that this is a subdivision and there can be some kind of driveway easement or license that can cut across in the corner, part of the existing, part of the remainder, the larger remainder, well, I don't see that there would be any problem, because it's the one landowner that is, working that out. But I am a little concerned about how we're allowing access to the road and what the driveway is gonna look like ultimately.
So, Mr. Harlicker, so can we make sure that when the site plan comes in, that the building site plan, that we make sure that this driveway isn't going across that neighbor's front yard? I mean, even if it is the city-owned property, you know what I mean?
I understand. Maybe Mr. Brody could jump in on this too. I suppose we could add a condition to the approval.
Because it seems
and
like there's
delineate where
adequate
the
space there.
driveway
It looks like there's probably about 15 feet when you look at the survey.
Driveway to
Probably about
if they
right.
just square off this corner.
Yeah.
Members of the council.
Mr. Himmer.
More than likely, we're gonna come off that corner with a diagonal driveway that goes back. That 20-foot easement, the right-of-way easement, that's shown the entire distance of that plat. That's a 20-foot easement all the way across that entire distance. And the idea behind that is there's another parcel to the west that has access directly out onto Main Street. So if we ever had to amend access, or they wanted to redo something with that parcel, we would get access off of Main Street, and they'd potentially be able to come out this direction. So while I understand your point, Councilmember Johnson, that it's the neighbor's land, it was dedicated to a plat, it is right away. So you may end up with a 20-foot wide driveway that's 15 feet in that little triangle on this plat, and another 5 feet out onto that existing right-of-way. There is no fee, it was dedicated as part of a plat. So it just makes sense that they would kind of come diagonally off the corner of that. I don't have the dimension on what that plat is there for that little triangle piece that touches the road, but that's more than likely where that driveway is going to go. Yeah. Absent that, if we wanted to, we could push it as far east as we wanted and make it a long one that follows that 20-foot right-of-way on the adjacent lot that's existing today. But the logical spot is to kind of come diagonally off that corner right up into that property.
Councilmember Griscoviac.
I was going to bring up that point that Mr. Himmer just brought up about that parcel to the west, and that it has access on Main Street. It's one of the only ones that have access on Main Street. And I too am in favor of the lot split. This is a big lot, let's get another house in there, I think that's great. But maybe we should take a consideration about that easement across there and see if we leave enough latitude in there for the other potential driveway, so they can eliminate their access on Main Street and do this. I'm not sure if that's feasible or not.
Well, that,
I'm sure they don't want to.
no, Mr. Hammer, but that's that whole point of that 20-foot right-of-way, right?
Correct. Under the
Yeah.
existing plat to the south of it, that 124th was 30 feet of land was dedicated for that. So that additional 20-foot gets us a 50-foot right-of-way to span through here for potential extension. Now, a house would more than likely have to go away as part of that, but that's part of what happens if and when that parcel ever redevelops or something else happens. It kind of reserves us that cart pathway if we ever needed to change access for that out onto Main Street, and still has dedicated right-of-way ample to get access to this one additional lot, whether it's from the previous one for the 30 feet that exists today or from the additional 20 feet we're getting as part of this plat. If that makes sense. I could try to draw a picture up there if that's easier, but. But they very well may, to your point, they very well may go slightly outside of what's being platted here onto the existing right-of-way that somebody else might say, but yeah, that's my land. And then it's a conversation about, here's your land, here's the public. The same way we have it with mailboxes and gardens and trees and everything else where that right-of-way lies.
Okay. All right,
Mayor,
Councilmember Kicker?
I'm still struggling with where, if in fact we did, that property to the west did switch their entrance and have that come out on Uplander or 124th, I'm still not sure I understand where that would come out. I mean, even if you have the new piece of property, have that, the driveway in the corner there, I mean, you're basically taking out the front yard?
So we would be creating basically a 20-foot cartway through here. So it would probably be a shared driveway scenario with the new lot kind of coming diagonally off of here, and then that driveway would come down through this 20-foot piece and up into the back of this site.
Okay.
So, don't hold your breath, that's probably not gonna happen anytime soon.
No, well, I just wondered.
Yeah.
That's not blocking us.
All right, any other questions for Councilmember Wells?
If that was created, I'm assuming the city would have to pay for that and maintaining it? If it was built for future use?
I think this is a different situation than what, Mr. Hammer?
Look at the street then, that 20-foot cartway.
Yeah, the 20-foot cartway under that scenario, if they decided to exercise that, would that be something we would need to maintain, or that would be a shared driveway and their responsibility?
I guess technically, because it's right away, it'd probably be the same thing we're looking at up off of Foley and 127th, that driveway, roadway that's up there. But depending on what happens, it's all part of the development agreement and how you handle it and how, we could assign maintenance responsibilities or something else. So yeah, it could put us in another weird situation in how you get access. But again, that's for a piece of property. We're reserving that space here today. Otherwise, you're never going to get access off of Main Street for that other property if something were to happen.
So to Councilmember Wells' point, we're not saying by leaving that 20-foot right-of-way that that's for sure how we would do it. We would figure out how we would do it when we got to that. And we're never going to do that again, right?
Not as long as you're here, or I'm sure. But it does give us that opportunity in the future. And that's why the one to the south of it was platted with a 30-foot right-of-way. And my guess is at that time they went, well, why are you plunking a house down right on the end of this right-of-way if we need to reserve the space? And they went, well, 4 lots is better than 3. So we're kind of already painted into a little corner here. We're just trying to be flexible and reserve that right.
All right. Councilmember Wells, does that answer your question?
Yeah, again, I'm like everyone else, splitting the lot, I don't have a problem with, but there's no way this driveway is not gonna be awkward for the person living there. They're not, I wouldn't be happy, and they're not gonna be happy when this driveway, because there's no other way for this driveway to come in to that lot without being an inconvenience to the neighbor that's there.
There's that wonderful picture we have on the lot split survey that is among our materials, and there's actually, if you look at that 20-foot permanent easement for street and utility purposes that's there, that's 90 by 20. And then there's the kind of diagonal line that is there that kind of goes to the, I would say it kind of is part of the radius of that corner that's there. I mean, if the lot split would have just included that diagonal line as part of the lot split, it would have created far more than ample space right along the curb cut for any driveway to go in there without impacting any neighbors. And so, I mean, I would have preferred the lot would have been split like that, but I'm not subdividing the property, so I'm still prepared to vote in favor of the lot split. I'm just anticipating that there are going to be issues, and we may need to work through some of those issues. So if there are conditions or things like that are recommended by you, Mr. Himmer, or Mr. Brody, or Mr. Harlicker, that we can put on it, that would help facilitate that, and avoid any potential future problems, I'd appreciate any thoughts.
Councilmember Kessler?
Question for Mr. Howard. Can you confirm, so a driveway does not need a setback from a lot line, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, so, and I just wanted to make sure that everybody was clear that that driveway can go all
Right
the
up to the
way
lot edge.
to the lot edge. You know, so it can be as much on the property as possible. But yeah, there is the need, when you look at it, that there's going to have to be something into the city right away that is in sight line from the house that's on Uplander.
Members of the council and Councilmember Johnson, I guess, absent moving these lot lines, which probably isn't going to happen at this point, we could look to the person who's performing this plat and ask for a small driveway easement on the southwest corner of that lot to accommodate, half of a driveway or enough to get a driveway in there, and that could be done under a separate document if they were open to it. Now, is that something you're requesting as a condition of approval? I guess that's to you, but that would then place that driveway in a location we're basically determining today. That is the water main, that diagonal, that's the water service to that lot, so we want to make sure we're not ending up with the curb stop in the driveway. That's not, that's somewhat problematic at times as well, but, we could ask the applicant if they would be open to some sort of a driveway easement across that corner, just to, he's basically placing an easement over a right-of-way easement anyway, so I don't know that it hurts anything, but.
So is that something we want to add
But it's an
bullet point
easement
on,
and it's
or-
not a right-of-way, and there's differences with that, Dave, so, we could say, in our all intents and purposes, that is a right-of-way, and we could say it has to go there, but I don't think a right-of-way versus a street easement are the same things. I think there's a slight difference there, and I'll defer to Dave on that, but if the applicant's open to it, I think that's a simple solution.
I'm satisfied that we've flagged issues of concern to the council for the neighborhood and the relationships among the people who live along that corner, and I'm not prepared to hold up, or I don't desire to hold up a lot split. It seems to make otherwise good common sense for this reason, so I'm prepared to go forward with it.
prepared enough to actually make a motion?
Sure, let me back out of this thing, and, okay, in planning case 17-40, I move that the city council approve resolution 1829, approving the proposed lot split with the following conditions. 1, All comments of the city engineer be addressed. 2, compliance with Title 11 land development regulations. 3, park dedication for the 2 lots be paid in the amount of $4,000, which is $2,000 per lot, prior to releasing the lot split for recording. And 4, all comments of Anoka County Highway Department to be addressed.
Motion by Geisler, second by Griscoviac. Discussion? Motion by Johnson. What did I say?
No respect.
Extra respect.
Extra respect. Motion by Johnson, second by Griscoviac. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? And that motion carries. It's all what you brought from the planning commission. I still have that in my head, it's. All right. Item 11, now we're into Port River Walk, and I'll bet we have pictures for this one, huh?
You would like to see them?
It might be good to show that. Item 11 is to consider resolution 18-30 to subdivide 17.46 acres into 14 tracts. And our next, our next 2 items are related to that project. So maybe you want to cover both of them?
Yes,
or-
correct, Mayor and Council. Excuse me. These are essentially, this item, as is the next one, are almost housekeeping items. During the due diligence, when reviewing the title information on this area of Port Riverwalk, all of it, they found some title discrepancies. And in order to clear up those discrepancies, we are proposing an RLS. Actually, there'll be 3 and possibly a 4th. That will cover the entire Riverwalk project area. And what this really does, it sets up the property for future development. When the property is developed, they'll come in with a preliminary plat that reflects the development that's being proposed. In the area here, this is egret coming in, and so it's bounded by this here. It kind of wraps around the apartments, and then down through here. I believe that's Drake here. Then it goes up to Coon Rapids Boulevard and this way. And if you look, each of these streets right now are identified in the RLS as tracks. And there's some small triangular areas where there was some issues with title, that those are also identified as tracks. That's why the large number of 14 of them are included in this registered land survey. So staff is recommending, and the planning commission also recommended approval, the proposed lot split in planning case 18-30. And on the next one, I can continue. This is what is being called the central Port Riverwalk area. And it includes this area here. This is the nursing home to the south, going up and through here. This is a little over 12 acres, and it is broken up into 12 tracts in this area here. And then Planning Commission this month is reviewing the 3rd component, which is kind of this area in here. And then the 4th, if there is one, will have to go the area right in through here. But for planning cases 1742 and 1743, Planning Commission and staff recommended approval, and there's separate resolutions for each RLS.
Anybody have any questions of Mr. Harlicker? All right.
Your Honor.
Councilmember Kicker?
I make a motion that the council approve resolution 18-30 approving the proposed registered land survey with the following conditions. That 1, all comments of the Anoka County Highway Department be addressed.
Motion by Kicker, second by Demmer. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? And that motion carries. And then on to item 12, which is planning case 17-43, consider resolution 18-31 to subdivide 12.28 acres into 10 tracts, Port Riverwalk.
Your Honor.
Councilmember Demmer.
Right, despite the fact that the RLS has the longest sentence I've ever seen in my life. If you ever want to see a good run-on sentence. Move in planning case 17-43 for the council to approve of resolution 18-31, approving the proposed registered land survey with the following condition: all comments of the Anoka County Highway Department be addressed.
Second?
Motion by Demmer, second by Kicker. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, and that motion carries. Thanks, Mr. Harlicker. We are on to item 13, to consider proposal and letter of engagement for engineering services, the 2018 Well Rehabilitation Program, Project 18-9. Mr. Himmer, anything you want to hit on that?
Mr. Mayor, this is just a continuation of our ongoing proactive maintenance. We closed the 17 project out earlier on consent. This is just 3 more wells and one of the booster pumps, and I'll stand for any questions you may have. This just starts the design process and getting ready for bid.
All right.
Mayor?
Councilmember Griscoviac?
I have a question for Mr. Himmer. We just closed out the 2017, and we all noticed that was about half of what you anticipated. Was that because there wasn't as many wells being rehabilitated and they've moved into the 18 picture, or?
No, Councilmember Griscoviac, if you look down at the budget impact, we budgeted $385,000 for this. We budgeted $385,000 for also last year's, because that's kind of where we end up. It's usually the question you ask when I come in with bids and you say, your estimate's $385, why are we awarding a contract for $600? And the reason we do that is we assume everything is going to be wrong with these pumps. And so we say, if everything is wrong, this is what the ultimate cost is going to be. Once you get into it, you don't end up ever having that scale, because maybe it's one thing on this pump and 2 things on this. So we've refined it over the years. That 385 is usually a pretty good number. There might be a year where everything is necessary, and there might be years where less is necessary, but that's where we end up, and the last one was like 365. So that's why we only have 385 budgeted, and we're awarding contracts for like 600.
Interesting. Okay, that clarifies. It's budgeted for 385. Engineer's estimate might be a little bit higher, but knowing.
You're assuming everything is going to be wrong with all of the pumps.
Okay. That clarifies. Thank you.
All right. So do you want to make a motion?
Your Honor.
Councilmember Demmer?
Move to accept proposal for engineering services for the 2018 Well Rehabilitation Program from Short Elliott Hendrickson, Inc., and authorize execution of letter of engagement in accordance with their proposal dated January 22nd, 2018.
Second.
Motion by Demmer, second by Geisler. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? And that motion carries. Item 14 is to consider Resolution 18-32, amending the 2018 budget for the police training facility. And I'll just get the little, the police department is requesting a budget amendment to enhance scenario-based use of force training by building interior walls in the portion of the police facility at Public Works. Interior walls will have doorways and a viewing platform above for trainers to watch and evaluate trainees. Forfeiture funds will be utilized as authorized by Minnesota statute, and the estimated cost is $20,900. Captain, do you have anything that you were here to tell us about this, or?
Only if you have questions, Mayor or Council.
Okay, thank you.
Building a bullpen.
All right.
Your Honor.
Yeah, Councilmember Johnson.
I'll move authorization of RS number 18-32, amending the 2018 Law Enforcement Programs Funds budget for a training facility. And as I understand it, this is all forfeiture money that's being used, so we're just reallocating forfeiture money.
Motion by Johnson, second by Wells. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And that motion carries. Item 15, consider Resolution 18-35, authorizing purchase of a portable stage. Bids were received on January 16th for the purchase of a portable stage. The stage would be used at events that take place during the 4th of July celebration at the Coon Ice Center, at Sand Creek Park, and for other events as deemed appropriate by the city. The 2018 budget does not include funds for the stage. Staff is proposing to split the cost with the Community Strength Foundation, with their portion of the cost to be paid over a 10-year period. Looking at, therefore, park improvement funds would need to be reallocated for the purchase and a payment agreement authorized with the Community Strength Foundation. 2 bids were received. It was determined that the low bidder did not meet specifications. Therefore, staff recommends that the bid be awarded to Wenger in the amount of $113,238. Registration of the trailer will add another $7,360. Anybody want to cover anything else on that, or did that cover it? Mr. Stemwedel?
Mayor, Council, that did essentially cover it. Just maybe one more piece on the bid that was rejected. There were a couple of key components to the stage that were requested as a part of our bid and that were not met by that second applicant, and they were fairly significant components of what was requested. Therefore, that one was kicked out.
Okay. And Wenger's, that's the company that's like in Owatonna or something, so it's a Minnesota company?
Correct, yes.
So is this push-button showmobile stage or whatever that is automated?
Yes,
Yes.
Your Honor.
Councilmember Wells?
I'd just like to point out that, I mean, we're getting something for half the cost with the community strength contributing half, and also the city has the, you know, if they would wish to, these are in very high demand. So if we wanted to recoup some of our costs, we could certainly rent it out locally, you know, depending on the council's wishes. But I think if we wanted to, we could do that. I don't know if that'd be good practice because it would be wear and tear on it, but I think it'll be a real nice thing for the city to have.
I agree. Mr. Stemwedel?
Mayor, Council, and maybe to dovetail off of that, Parks and Rec Coordinator Ryan Gunderson and I have talked about developing a policy around the use for this, and that it might be sort of the opposite problem where so many people are interested in using it and we're saying no, but certainly within the city limits for other groups and nonprofits and schools and things like that, I think that would make some sense, and maybe even neighboring cities. As we develop that policy, we'll touch base with council on where you all are comfortable with us using that, and certainly Community Strength, since they're paying for half of it, they'll have a role in that as well.
Sure. Because we're not dragging it around on salty roads in the winter or something goofy.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I guess my only concern about this, and I'm fully supportive of it, we had a long workshop on it, is that we find a good place to store it, because it is a valuable asset to the city. And so that'll be another issue to bring up at a later date, I'm sure.
Yes.
We don't have a motion on this yet, do we? Councilmember Kicker?
I make a motion that we approve RS number 18-35, allocating park improvement funds for the purchase of a portable stage. Number 2, an agreement with the Community Strength Foundation for the portion of the cost of the portable stage. And 3, awarding the purchase of the portable stage to Wenger in the amount of $113,238, not including registration taxes of $7,360.
I'll second it.
Motion by Kicker, second by Johnson. What kind of delivery time are we looking on this?
Mayor, Council, I believe, and Chief Piper can correct me if I'm wrong, it's about 3 months build-out time, so we anticipate we'll have it with plenty of time for the 4th of July festivities.
Good. Maybe the first movies in the park. Maybe.
Maybe.
Mayor, Council, I'll get you an update next time we visit, but delivery is not going to be a problem.
Okay, thanks, Chief. All right, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
You're out of order.
Who gave him a gavel?
Always wanted one.
There was none opposed, so that motion is passed. Item 16 is to consider purchase of a water tanker truck for the parks, and funds in the amount of $170,115 to replace Unit 117. A 2001 Sterling water truck are included in the capital equipment fund, and the 2018 budget includes a trade-in value estimated at $30,000. The fleet maintenance supervisor is recommending the purchase of a replacement unit, and the cost of the new unit 117 is anticipated to be $146,758, not including estimated registration tax of $10,000. The tanker truck chassis will be purchased from the Ruffridge Johnson Equipment Company. Will be purchased from the Allstate Peterbilt, a state contract vendor in the amount of $88,123, and the tank will be purchased from Ruffridge Johnson Equipment in an amount of $58,635, and Ruffridge Johnson will install the tank and the chassis. The existing unit 117 only has, I added the word only, has 26,000 miles. Although the miles are low, given it stays in the city, the vehicle is heavily corroded on the truck chassis, the water tank, and the associated plumbing. The supervisor is recommending the city advertise the old truck for sale on government deals. Historically, the city has seen a higher return compared to standard trade-ins by utilizing this process. And the fleet maintenance supervisor estimates to receive $12,000 to $16,000 for the unit as compared to the $30,000 estimated at budget time due to market changes and added deterioration of the unit. And the truck is used to flood skating rinks and provide water for park trail maintenance in the summer. And I would imagine it's those flooding the skating rinks and driving it on the salty roads in the winter that's that's taking a toll on that frame, so.
You gotta buy that undercoat.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, you takers have a Z-bar. Is that still a thing?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember
I'll
Geisler.
make a motion to recommend the purchase of the 2018 tanker truck under the state contract totaling $146,758, exclusive of tax and advertising the existing 2001 Sterling tanker truck on Gov Deals for sale.
Motion by Geisler, second by Kicker. Discussion?
Mayor?
Councilmember Griscoviac.
I just want to let everyone know that I did talk to Mel over at Public Works about this, looking at it, only had 26,000 miles on it. He did explain to me that it's used year-round. It is used in the wintertime, and 17 years on something that's used year-round. My original question was, if the chassis only got 26,000 miles on it, maybe we can get a new tank and plumbing. But he did mention to me that it's pretty rusted out, it's pretty used up, so I'm in favor. Just
I
wanna
just
let you know.
think it sounds like a fire truck in sheep's clothing.
And I am
Wrong color.
It's the wrong color.
yellow, I'll get a yellow one.
Councilmember Wells?
I know this is nitpicky, but it does seem to me that at budget time, the amounts are always a lot higher than they are. You know, we get this all the time. We estimated 30,000, now it's down to as little as 12. It seems like that's pretty much always the case, so maybe we should budget a little bit more realistically than always coming back, because it seems like we're always overvaluing what the trade-in would be on these. I can't believe that much changes in 9 months.
Mayor, Council,
Mr.
certainly can look
Stemwell,
at
care to
that. I'm
defend
certainly
that?
interested to look at the track record and see, how often if we're low or below, but certainly maybe we need to be a little more conservative at budget time, and my guess is at that point, we're sort of theorizing about which units we're replacing and doing some, fairly light research on purchase cost, and then when we get into it, we're sort of into the details, so it's something we can look at.
There's two issues that I'd like to add briefly, and that is, number one is we also are conservative on the cost, so it's costing us less also, and we're relying on the state contract list, so the pricing isn't known at that time, so we're just making some estimates on what that factor of increase will be.
Fair enough.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? And that motion carries. And we are at the open mic portion of the evening. If you are here for open mic, you're for open mic? No. Okay. Anybody else? No, all right. So nobody here for open mic. We don't have any reports from previous open mics, and we are on to other business. We are in the thick of snowflake days. Got the chili contest coming up Thursday night. It's tomorrow. Yeah, so, all right, because this will be replayed. Thursday night, the 8th of February, down at the VFW. What other kind of events? We have a family day coming up, I think, on Sunday, the 11th,
At the ice arena, that's correct.
at the Ice Arena.
Yep, 3 to 7:30, all kinds of different games and activities. Our staff is running that this time, so.
Okay, excellent. All right. Any other business to come before council? Any other announcements? Really quiet around here. All right.
Still cold outside.
Is that what it is? Okay. Are we done then, or what?
To adjourn?
Motion by Kicker, second by Demmer to adjourn. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Aye, we're adjourned.